Hello and welcome back to another episode of Transport Fever 2. We're here in Brookshire County, passing by our new supermarket in Salt Lake City, and in this video, we're going to focus mainly on upgrading our passenger transport around the map, as well as taking a look at Lincoln's roads and potentially fixing some of that up if we have the time. And so our main focus is going to be making sure our bus networks in our cities are updated and working, and making sure that all of our vehicles are moving as effectively as possible, and making sure our stations are not overcrowding too much. And so while we're here, let's start off in Salt Lake City, and I think everything is pretty much fine. I don't think we have too many issues. Of course, some of our stops are a bit overloaded, and I'm not sure if there's too much that we can do about it. I suppose what we could do maybe is on this line, we could duplicate and get some more buses going, but I don't want to overload it too much. This might end up having to be a tram line where we can get higher capacity vehicles running. But other than that, it looks like most of our other stops are doing pretty well. Some of them are overflowing a little bit, but there's not too much we can do about that. We do have this line here that runs around sort of the outer edge of the city. This looks like it could use an upgrade. So let's see if we have any new buses unlocked. And I think we might just opt for faster buses in general. So we'll go with these and then maybe get 2 more. And that might also help out. But I think for now that'll do it for Salt Lake City. Of course, we have our passenger trains here, which we can take a look at, and maybe we just need to add another train, or maybe we've unlocked some better trains that we can start to use. But before we touch our trains, let's just look at the other cities connected to this line. So we'll look at Houston, and then we'll look at Portland, and then we can start to take a look at potentially upgrading these trains. So first, let's take a look here at Houston, and we can see there's not really any areas that are not covered by our existing stops. I think maybe we could extend this line here to come down one more and get this area. But other than that, I think a lot of our stops that are in a pretty good spot. I suppose we might also be able to bring our tram stop down a little farther, all the way down to this intersection. But it doesn't look like we need to do much with building new bus lines. I think I want to hold off on a new bus line until we expand Houston out a bit more up here. Then we can get another bus line going across. But overall, I think this is going to be mainly trying to focus on managing our vehicle numbers and our vehicle sizes. So first, I think let's take a look at our tram line, as this is pretty much our main people mover in the city. Let's see if maybe we've unlocked some better trams. Now, one thing important to note that I'm seeing is it doesn't look like some of these trams are reaching their top speed. It looks like they're getting to just about 30 miles an hour, and then they're unable to go any faster. So I think we might need to take that into account when we upgrade. I don't think our stops are spaced out far enough for top speed to really matter too much right now. So if we take a look here, the top speed on this tram should be 37 miles an hour, but realistically it's only getting about 30. And so I think a pretty good upgrade might actually be to switch to these Lost Haven trams. Now the top speed isn't 30, it's a little bit slower at 25 miles an hour, but again, I don't think we're going to be hitting that top speed too much. We double our loading speed, and then we also cut down on the length of the tram, which will be important up at the train station stop, so that we're not overcrowding that station. Another good bonus is this tram only costs us about half as much to run, while carrying a similar amount of people loading faster and only a slight reduction in top speed. So I think we'll go with that, and then that should give us space to add some more trams. So we'll do that switch, and then we'll see how that ends up affecting the line as a whole. Alright, and then looking at some of our other lines, it looks like our bus line number 4 here is very heavily in use. So I think let's just duplicate a couple of these and see what that ends up doing. I think that's going to be a solution for a lot of our bus lines. I think a lot of these are pretty up to date on the vehicles that they're using. It's just more a matter of getting the throughput on the line. Now this line here is pretty old. Yeah, it's using these old Mack buses. So this one we will upgrade. And then we'll also get 2 more buses going on that line. And then again, I think our lines on the lower end of Houston here below the river are pretty okay. I don't think we need to extend those, but we will grab this one. We'll add some bus stops. I think we'll just do this right here, and then we'll just grab the line. We'll find this station, add this one in, add that one back in on the return trip, and that shouldn't really affect us too much then. And then the last line I said we were gonna switch up is our tram line, extending that down to here, so we can just easily pop in some stops there, grab our tram line, and then in a much similar way just extend this down and to this station. Alright, so it's going to take a little bit for us to see if any of these changes make a difference. So we're just going to leave Houston off like this, and then we'll check back in later, and if anything major needs changed again, we can do that. But now moving on to Portland, which I think probably needs an upgrade the most out of the 3 cities we've looked at so far. We have all this new growth here slowly bleeding into the area that we built out a little bit ago. So it's pretty nice to see that this area is finally getting used. Buildings are finally popping up here. Now it's not necessarily the buildings I wanted to see here. I wanted to see this be mostly residential and commercial, but it does look like we're getting some industrial buildings mixed in here a good bit, but I think it'll be fine. We can't really control that too much. If we take a look at our zoning, it looks like a lot of the industrial is staying over in this area anyway, so hopefully we can keep that, and then this area up here can become mostly residential and commercial. But anyway, let's get on with a bus network for Portland. Now this might involve us redesigning a few lines, because I think what I want is to have a line coming on this road and following out as far as that can go. So we might have to do something here. Maybe we cut that out, maybe we move it down a block, I'm not too sure. But I think first let's just build these stops and then see where we end up. So I think we'll have one line here. We'll have another line right about there. I suppose we could have one more before we reach this main road. Or actually, I think instead we'll just have this stop right here at the main road. Then we can have another stop here. Moving down more, we'll have another one right about here. And then our last stop that would be on this line would be all the way down at this intersection. And so I think what's going to end up happening is we're going to shift this whole line down a block. So we'll have another bus line running on this road. This will curve and then come down and end here. I think that'll be a pretty good stopping point for that. So let's just make sure these aren't connected to any other lines. Yeah, so it looks like we can just delete these, and then we'll be able to easily shift those to where we want them. Alright, so it looks like most of this line did just pop down when we replaced those stations. So all we have to do then is manage the line and add these stops in. And then the next line we'll adjust is, I think, this one that runs up and down one of our main roads. So here we'll actually delete this one and we'll move it down a block so it lines up here at this stop and then again up at this stop. And then I think the last new line that we're going to get in here is going to be another one that runs to our train station. And I think that's going to run up this road, and so then it can meet these stops here. And that'll help get people in this area covered when it comes to getting to the train station. And then people out here can take this bus over to this stop and then come down to the train station. So I think that's how we're going to do this. And so then we'll just get a stop probably here. This will cover mainly just these buildings. We'll have a stop here to connect with this bus stop. We'll have another stop here to connect to this stop. And then thinking about future connections, I think we'll just have one more here, and then we'll see how this area fills out when we want to get more demand from this area. Alright, so now really all we have to do is add buses to these lines, and we'll be right back once those buses are added. Alright, so we can already see some of our bus stops starting to get some demand, especially out here. These ones are already starting to look a little full, so that's exciting to see. And we did upgrade some of our existing lines to just have a few more buses to handle some of the demand. But now, again, this is just going to be pretty much a waiting game while we wait to see how effective these buses end up being. But I think now what that means is we can start to take a look at our trains here and see if maybe we need to get a few more running on this line. And so taking a look here at all of our cities, Salt Lake City has a ton of demand here. Houston also has a ton of demand. So let's first just see if we have better trains unlocked. Alright, and so now while I wasn't able to really find a train better than what we were already running, I did upgrade the cars to some nicer cars compared to what we had before. It does change the capacity slightly, but for the most part, everything else is pretty much the same about this train. So I think really we're just at that point where we just need to start adding more trains to the line. So we'll do one more. We'll get a total of 5 running between these cities. Now, at some point, I do think I want to have sort of a bypass line going past Salt Lake City, and then have maybe an individual line to Salt Lake City and Houston running, an individual line between Salt Lake City and Portland running, and then maybe a faster, more direct line. Well, it'd be using the same track, so it wouldn't be more direct, but straight from Portland to Houston without stopping at Salt Lake City, so that we can keep our top speed up. And then we can get a pretty fast train running on this line that would be able to be at its top speed for most of the trip. Alright, so now let's take a look at our other train line coming out of Houston, our Houston and Tacoma line. And I think this train is actually doing pretty well for itself given how old it is. But I don't necessarily see a reason to upgrade it, as we're keeping demand sort of in check here in Houston. And then in Tacoma, it's much of the same, although things could probably be a little different. But first, let's get our Tacoma bus situation figured out first, and then we can think about rethinking this passenger station here. And so because of how we have Tacoma set up, I think it's really just a matter of extending a lot of our lines. So we'll extend to have some stations all the way out over on this end of the city. Maybe we'll bring an extra stop or two down to this portion, or I guess we already have that over here. And then we can have 1 or 2 extra lines running in this area that we recently built up in Tacoma. Alright, now here you can see all of the new bus stops and lines that we put in for Tacoma. So most importantly, we have a lot of this development out this way. So we added this bus line to run up and down this street. We extended a lot of our bus lines to come out and connect to this line. And then we added this line all the way over here to cover this whole portion of the city that wasn't previously covered. We also added this bus line up here to connect the tops of these routes and also serve this side of the train tracks where it gets cut off from the city. And then overall we just added some extra buses on some lines that needed it. And now something I'd really like to do is take a look at this train station here and try to make it a little better. We can see it's pretty small with how it is, and I think we can do some changes here to just make it bigger and fit better here. And so I think first we're going to want to add buildings to the other side of the train station. So that's going to end up costing us a lot of money here as we delete some of these buildings. And then I think it'll even involve us leveling this road. So we'll delete these roads for now. I don't think these will really get in our way much, but let's see what we can add here. It looks like we can add a large main building on this side. But the question is, do we want to stay with 2 tracks pretty much forever? I'm not sure if we really want to do that. Alright, so we added 2 extra sets of tracks, and although that stops us from being able to fit a large building, it looks like it'll let us fit a medium building. And so we'll do that, and then we'll throw on some small side buildings just to add the extra capacity. I think this side needs redone a bit, so we'll get rid of what was the old station, fit in a new small building, and we'll get those placed just like so. And so now we should have a lot more space with our buildings to hold extra people. And then all we should have to do now is flatten out this area and then reconnect our road. Alright, now that's all that we're going to do for the train station. We just wanted to give it a little bit more space before it sort of got blocked in here by the city. But I think this will be good enough for now. We can hold up to 320 people. And we do have some space to expand if we needed to ever add some extra capacity, but I think our platforms are doing that just fine. Alright, so next we're going to move over and take a look at Allentown. I think Allentown is pretty okay with how it is. I think there's maybe just a few lines that will extend, such as our bus lines. So we can just get these to extend up to this new built area. So get these up here like so, and then the last one over here, and then I think this line we can extend all the way out to here, and this will pretty much cover everything that we've recently built for Allentown. And then we just have to again extend our existing lines to capture these new stations. Alright, so that's going to be all for Allentown. Let's take a look at our train between Allentown and Pittsburgh, because I think we can have some improvements here with the train that's currently running. So let's just manage this vehicle, and let's see if we have any appropriate upgrades that we can add. Alright, and so this is the train that we're going to replace it with. It is a 422 Hiawatha engine with a top speed of 99 miles an hour, which is significantly better than what we're currently running. It does have slightly less capacity, but the top speed should make up for that, and it has a similar power rating with both of them reaching top speeds in roughly 3 to 5 minutes. So we'll just replace these, and we have this train here that's passing by, so we can take a look at this train just to get a look at what this will look like overall. I think this is a really nice looking train, and hopefully it works out on our Allentown to Pittsburgh line. And I think we might just get a 5th train on it anyway, since our Allentown station is pretty full. So now looking at Pittsburgh, our Allentown line isn't really the most in demand, but I think that there's just a lot going on in Pittsburgh that needs fixed first. I think most importantly, we need to build out Pittsburgh more for it to expand, but I think a lot of these bus lines could be improved. Now we are still covering most of the city, and I think we're just going to leave it for now, although I do know that we do need to maybe add some lines and expand Pittsburgh. So I think first and foremost, we're just going to upgrade these trams. So we have these trams. Let's see what we were running. So it looks like we were running these, which actually aren't that bad of trams. Although it looks like we could maybe upgrade with a higher power tram car and not really lose much. And so I think we'll do that. It'll also take up a little less space. And I think we need to get some more trams running on the line because we do have a lot of people waiting in sort of these main stations for Pittsburgh, presumably to get to the train station here. And that really seems to be the only line that's really struggling. All of our other stations seem to be doing pretty well. Nothing's really getting overloaded, but again, we do need to extend our coverage, but I think we'll do that when we expand the streets of Pittsburgh, which we're not going to do right now, but that will be on our list of things to do later. Now, taking a look at Roswell, Roswell's doing pretty well. I think it looks like maybe the only line that could use a slight bump is this line here. So we'll get a few more buses going that way, and then maybe this line that runs across here, specifically from this Central Street station, probably to the train station is what that demand is coming from. But other than that, it looks like a lot of our other lines are doing pretty well. And I don't think there's really much of a need to upgrade or change anything. I think all of our stops are covering most of the city, since we did do this the last time we upgraded Roswell's street network. Alright, and that then leaves us off here in Lincoln. So I think what we're going to do first is we're going to fix whatever's going on up here with these roads. We're going to basically trim all this back, rebuild this. We'll build out this way a bit more, maybe shallow out this hill so we can get a little bit more density in this area. We do have this area that we built out recently, so we're not going to touch much on this end of the city. But I think our main focus will be cleaning up a lot of this and extending it sort of up into the hills, where it will be a lot more low density, but should still be able to fill out Lincoln's population demands. Alright, and so I think this is going to be what our new and improved Lincoln is going to look like. I think this came out pretty nice. It's a little hard working with this hill here, but I think what we came up with fits nicely. We gave the building some space to breathe as it climbs up here. We did restrict some areas where buildings can go just so that we don't have buildings right on the edge of a cliff. But other than that, I think everything else came out pretty good with it. And so we have this sort of very random, just low density area up here. This would be probably what I would imagine be very sparsely populated houses up here. I think it would take on much more of like a suburb type feel with this. And then we did end it off here with this sort of regular road where maybe we start to break back into a more regular grid on some less extreme terrain. So maybe we do that if Lincoln starts to reach out that far. But I think what we have here works pretty well. And then we also extended this sort of small city block out a little bit, and then we added a connecting road up the mountain up to here to whatever this will end up becoming. And I think actually we might be able to connect these two roads, and that'll help us out with our bus lines eventually. We'll have a much straighter path to get buses up into this area. So I think we'll have the connection like that. We can smooth this out just a little bit, and then we just have a lot more straightforward path for a bus route where it can maybe start down here, have another stop here, and then come up this way into this area. And so right now I don't think Lincoln needs much done with its bus network. I think really it needs to prioritize growing first. So we'll let it fill out over here. We'll see how this fills in with buildings, and then this area over here. And then once that fills in, we can extend our bus lines to see sort of where the city is growing the most, and then sort of go off of that. But let's take a look at our Lincoln train station, and this train station is completely overloaded. I think mainly we need to get some more buildings in here. Let's see if we can maybe get a large building in. Doesn't look like that'll fit. Well, let's try to get a large building in over here. Maybe we can squeeze on a few of these. And it doesn't look too great, but I think eventually we're going to replace this and try to make it look a little bit better. But I think mainly we just need to get a bit more capacity in here. And then we can start to tweak some of these trains. And so the train line I want to take a look at here is our Pittsburgh, Roswell, and Lincoln line. As if we come over to Pittsburgh, we can see that is our most in-demand line here in Pittsburgh, and that's actually taking up a lot of space at the station. So I think maybe an upgraded train. Yeah, I think with 4 trains we'll upgrade them, and then we'll get some more trains on here. I think we'll aim probably for a total of 6 total on this line. Alright, so this is the train that we're going to go with. It is a Commodore Vanderbilt Hudson 464. I believe it's just a slightly upgraded version of what we're currently running. It has higher top speed than what we are currently running by about 10 miles an hour. And it has slightly less capacity, but I think since we'll be running more trains on here, that'll be better. Plus, the top speed over such a long distance will help drive a bit more demand. So we'll simply do that and then duplicate, get a total of 6 trains running on this line. And then we can just take a look here and we'll watch this train as it comes in and stops at Pittsburgh. Alright, and here's a look at this train as it comes into our Pittsburgh station. You can see it's flying in here at 70 miles an hour, and it should be getting there pretty soon. It'll pick up a full load of people, head out to Roswell, and then eventually Lincoln. So what's interesting is taking a look here at our Pittsburgh station. Our Lincoln to Pittsburgh line is pretty low, and I think that might be due to the fact that this train is no longer good competition. So I think our train that comes over to Lincoln or goes over to Roswell and then up to Lincoln might be better, but we can confirm this if we take a look here and we hover over this number. We can see actually a majority of them are going to Roswell and very few are going to Lincoln. But it's interesting that some of these people are choosing to go to Roswell first, then Lincoln, instead of taking our direct line from Pittsburgh to Lincoln. So I think maybe let's upgrade that train. Although, taking a look at it, it does have a top speed of 112 miles an hour. Now it does take a while to get there, so maybe that has something to factor in. But either way, this train is pretty old, so let's see if we can upgrade it with something a little bit better. Alright, and so I think what we're going to do is we're going to replace this train with this Pioneer Zephyr train. Now it's not too much better than our existing train, but it does have the same top speed, and if we get 2 of these, I think increasing the frequency might help. They have a considerably lower capacity than we were running, but I think maybe it's the frequency of our stops that is swaying some people to go to Roswell first instead of waiting for the train to come. And so here we can see one of those trains just now leaving Lincoln, and that'll head up and over to Pittsburgh. And we can see this line has generally earned us money over time, but I think maybe if we just get a little bit more consistency, that might greatly help with fine-tuning and troubleshooting on this line. And so here we can see our train already climbing up close to its top speed. It's reaching 75 miles an hour right now, and it's not even halfway to Pittsburgh yet, so I'm pretty excited for this train. I think it's a very cool train to see running. It is hard to make it work in certain situations, but I'm glad we were able to find a line where hopefully it will work out for at least a couple of videos. Alright, and with that, let's take a closer look at what we've done in this video, and then when we come back, we'll check up on all the lines we put in this video, and then we'll talk about some next steps and future projects. Alright, and now that we're back, let's take a look at the lines that we've put in this video, starting off with this one here, our Salt Lake City, Portland, and Houston train. So if we take a look here and we just click the line as a whole, and we take a look at finances, we can see we're starting to get a much more regular pattern of money coming in. It doesn't seem to be perfectly regular, or we just don't have enough data yet to fully make that conclusion, but it does look like our running costs on average have gone down despite us adding an extra train, and we are consistently making almost around 10 million per period with this line, which I think is an improvement from before. It's a little hard to tell because of how infrequent it was before. But let's take a look here at Salt Lake City. It looks like some of these lines didn't get too much better. It looks like the problem lines we had before are still causing us some issues, but I think I'd rather us be overcrowded than undercrowded or not covering an area of the city, so I'm okay with that. Let's see if our numbers have started to go down at all. It doesn't seem like they have, so we might even need to add a 6th train onto this line. We'll just have to keep an eye on that, and maybe we'll do that at the beginning of the next video if things haven't sorted themselves out by then. Now, looking at Portland, we have a lot of people using some of our lines. It looks like a lot of people are using this station here. Now, I'm not sure if they're transferring lines or if they're trying to get to somewhere else, but it looks like all of them are trying to get to the train station. So I believe they probably came from this line over to this bus stop and are taking that down to the train station. And I think that's why this whole line is very much in demand right now. So we'll get a couple more vehicles running on that, and that should help out. And then of course some of our other stations have a lot of people, but I think we really wanted to focus on this line here, as this seems to be one of our main routes through the heart of the city to the train station. And it does look like we have even more people waiting in Portland, so I definitely think let's just get another train on this line. That'll be 7 trains in total. I don't want to get too many more than that though, because I don't want to start overcrowding our tracks, but I think we definitely need it given how much demand we're generating right now. And then again, coming back to Portland, it looks like people are using our new stops that we placed down. Now, it does look like some of these have gotten a little bit better, but there is a lot of people on some of these other lines. For instance, this line coming across here, I believe we upgraded this one, and now we have a lot more people waiting, especially here at Taylor Street. And then let's take a look at our tram line. It looks like we were never really making money on this, but it looks like we're a lot closer to making money now. I'm not sure how we can fix that though, although it looks like a lot of these people are just trying to get directly to the train station. It doesn't look like people are really trying to go back. So I'm not too sure how you would handle something like that, where everyone's trying to get to the train station and then no one wants to use the line sort of on the return trip. But I guess as long as it's moving people, that's all we really care about. It looks like this line's doing pretty well, although it looks like we might have damaged the efficiency of it a little bit, as it's not earning us quite as much money as it was before. Now, one thing to keep an eye on is we want to make sure we're not going to end up backing up at this bus station, which doesn't seem like it's going to be a problem just yet, but we should start to be aware of that as more and more buses will inevitably get added to these lines. But anyway, next let's move on to Tacoma, where it looks like we actually have our passenger demand under control now. It looks like a lot of the lines that start to consolidate closer to the train station are the ones that are getting overloaded, but we don't have any sort of like official station for the train station here, so maybe we can cut out this road and create a large station here where we can have maybe this line and this line come in and stop at. That might help out a lot. But for now, I think it's actually handling it pretty well, and we seem to gain pretty even usage across the board. I see some people waiting pretty much at all the new stops that we've added, so that's pretty exciting to see. And then our train station is overloaded. I think we did good by improving the capacity of it, but I think we need to focus next on getting more trains in and out of Tacoma, as we really don't have that many lines connecting to here. So we'll keep an eye on that, and maybe in the next video we'll just throw some more trains in after letting the dust settle a little bit. Next we have Lincoln, where we are starting to see some buildings start to climb their way up on these new roads that we put in. You can see some are starting to populate in here. It looks like it's slowly crawling out into this area. So Lincoln's doing pretty well. And then over here in Roswell, we didn't really do anything with Roswell bus-wise, but we did do some stuff with the trains, but I don't think we've let it run long enough for this to really take any effect. However, it might not be a bad idea to start throwing some more trains on this line regardless, but let's actually take a look at this line. Yeah, we can see we just don't have enough data yet to fully analyze the changes we've made. We can see it looks like we're going to make more money than we did before, which makes sense, and it looks like we didn't really increase our running costs too much, so maybe that was a really good change that we made, and we'll just have to scale it up with a few more trains next time. And then next we have Pittsburgh, where really all we did was add more trams, which does seem to be working for a few of these stations. However, this one here, our sort of 5th Street station, which is also sort of our hub at the end of this island here, or the end of the peninsula, this station is still pretty overcrowded, so I think we'll have to think of different ways to get people to the train station, as I don't want to keep cluttering up this section of the city with public transportation vehicles, trucks, and buses. But overall, I think Pittsburgh is doing just fine, and our Allentown line, still struggling to generate some demand out of Pittsburgh, but I think once we get our Roswell line under control, this might start to even out a bit more. And then lastly, we have Allentown, which seems to be doing just fine. We have a ton of people waiting at the train station. We have these trains leaving full out of Allentown. If we take a look here, this train might actually not be doing that well, but that could be due to the lack of demand on Pittsburgh's end. But as long as we continue to earn money, I'm not going to be too worried about this line. We just want to make sure this doesn't plunge us into losing money. But again, we're just going to have to wait for the numbers to shake out on this. And so with that, I think that is going to be all for this video. So lastly, as for next steps, I think what I want to do is I want to start to get all of these resources out to all the cities, or at least to Portland and Houston over here. Since Salt Lake City is receiving all 6, I want to start to get goods and machines over to Portland and really start to grow Portland. And Houston, although it doesn't have room to grow, it still needs goods. So I'd like to get some goods going to Portland, or going to Houston, so then we can make full use of that train that we recently built coming in here. And then I think that'll pretty much be these 3 cities squared away pretty well. They'll have pretty much all the connections that we would need. So they would have a good train connection, they have a connection to the highway for private transportation, and they would be receiving all the goods. So I think once we get those resources connected to all 3 of those cities, we can start to leave this side of the map alone and really start to develop some of the other areas of the map. Especially since I know we've been sort of neglecting some of our smaller cities, such as Allentown and Lincoln, but we will get back to those cities pretty soon and start getting those developed up to the same level of detail as these 3 cities. And so I think with that, that's going to be all for this video. So if you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe. If you have any suggestions or feedback, leave a comment below. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.